Hello, fellow researchers. This is Nancy Lundgreen, and I'm happy to be with you today. I'm looking forward to next year when we can all be together and make this a lot more fun. This is Method Behind the Madness. I named it Family History 101 because it's the basics. This class is in response to those who asked last year in my Family History 201 class, but how do you do it? This is how I do it. Again, I choose to work from Family Search, but these methods would be helpful in any style of research anywhere. Let me get this going here. Number 1, choose a primary person to research. By focusing on one person at a time, you won't wander 3 generations away and forget who you were working on. That being said, you add the spouse, and then their parents, and then the siblings. Each of their spouses add a nephew, his wife, her parents, and pretty soon you're 3 generations away from where you started anyway. So you still might wander away, but you'll have a place to come back to with a beginning and an end goal in the research. Number 2, the main goal is to build a chronological timetable for that person. There is a place on every family group sheet for a birth date, marriage date, and death date. Other information like census, church, school, and employment records will add to that timetable and will ultimately tell the story of their life. The goal is to collect and gather all that you can in order to document the path of his or her life. Basic information, further information. Number 3, I begin with looking for census records. If you don't know where your person lived, you'll never be able to do the research for them. You could search every record in California, but if they never lived in California, you won't have any success. Start with the information you do have about them and build on that by looking at first in the census records. Number 4, document the sources as you go. Undocumented information is really just a hunch, to a researcher anyway. It might be right, it might be wrong. A valid researcher will prove the information or at least document where they found it until they can prove it. Please leave documentation in a manner that can be easily accessed by future researchers. For instance, in this photo, if you click on the link, that will take you immediately and directly to the actual obituary. No more further research needed. If you just documented that you found her death date in her obituary, but you did not document where you found her obituary or leave a link to the actual document, then I have to do the research all over again just to prove that hunch. Okay, so 2 identical documents are called a duplication. Duplications are unnecessary, a waste of space. I keep the one that has the most correct information. There are some states, for instance, Washington and Pennsylvania, that I'm aware of, for some reason, keep many duplicates of each record. A marriage license, I can find a dozen or more sometimes with the very same record. And so I go through each one and find the one that has the most correct information, and that's the one I keep. 2 different documents with the same information is twice the truth. I save both of those. For instance, if you find a marriage date in a Pennsylvania county record 1800 to 1950 and in a Pennsylvania marriage record 1880 to 1970, I save both. That's 2 verifications of the same document. With marriage documents, if there are 2 different dates, generally the earlier date is a registration date and the second date is the actual wedding date. I record the actual wedding date. When you document correctly, your documentation is explanation enough, unless there is some unusual need to further explain something. For some reason, people are compelled to leave lengthy explanations, and more often than not, it's simply not necessary. Your documentation should be enough in most cases. Number 5, search for missing records. This is where you start using the methods that I taught in my other class, Family History 201. The records are very likely there right in front of you, right where you looked last, but the name may be misspelled, the birth date might be off, or the birthplace could be wrong. As a researcher, you need to develop the mindset of a detective. Look for red flags, discrepancies, use unusual methods for searching. For instance, for searching for a married daughter, you might look in the parents' cemetery by searching only for her first name. Or you might try out a possible marriage record by searching for that woman as if she were married to the person on the document, until you can prove that it is her or it is not. Learning how to manipulate the information you input into the search engine is critical to successful research. For instance, here's James Fair. I found his census record in 1850 without any problem whatsoever. In 1860, though, I had a very hard time finding him until I manipulated the information because they have his name misspelled. And here is Ella Faye Twitchell, as you see correctly spelled on the upper right-hand corner. But her 1920 census record had it badly misspelled, Twilctrell, and were it not for some manipulation of the input, I would not have found her record. Number 6, then do the same thing for each family member. Many times I've found a missing census record or other record by searching for it through another family member. People often moved to places where their siblings had already moved, so you might find your missing person there with the family. The picture isn't whole until the whole family is researched. Again, research the family members one by one, concentrating on the one until you move to the next. That could be a lot of research, and now you understand why it takes professional researchers months to follow a line. There are a lot of people involved. Family history research is a challenging puzzle to be solved. Often the records are in poor condition. This is the 1860 census record for one of the lines I was working on recently. Sometimes the writing is sloppy. This is an 1806 marriage record. Between the sloppy writing and the problem with the ink, it isn't easy to read. Often the information is incomplete or incorrect. On this one, can you tell me what the individual's full name is? I'll give you a second. Wrong. His name is William G. Lane. Lane. And if you look up to the upper left where the town where he died is Swiss Vale, you'll see that S looks a lot different than what you probably thought it was in his name. That is actually an L. So you have to work through a lot of those difficulties. If and when you come to a dead end, and sometimes you will, I leave it sit for 6 months and then I come back to it. With more experience and with more records available to you, you will likely have greater success down the road. Another example, here's Amelia McIntyre. If you can see on the upper right, that is the correct spelling of her name with an MCI. They have it spelled incorrectly with MC. I was unsuccessful in finding her parents in the 1850 census record until I searched for Amelia, the daughter, and found them. Their names, her parents' names, are Hugh and Elvira. You will see on the lower left bottom that they have her parents' name as Tush and Lavina. I never would have found them if I hadn't looked for her. Number 8, Fill in your timetable with photos, newspaper clippings, certificates, etc. And I do this as I go along. When I find something that belongs to that person, I will document it and add it to their story. This is what makes a person or a name real, and it tells their story. So fill in as much as you can as you go along. For instance, an obituary, that would be perfect. Number 9, leave an honorable trail. Remember that these genealogical websites are used by professional genealogists and researchers all over the world. Check your spelling. Look up the county and include it. Use the format designed by the website. And for instance, some require that dates be like the 12th of March, 1863, instead of March 12th, 1863. There are learning tools and excellent tutorials available with each website. Take the training, learn how to navigate their systems. Know what you're doing so as to add to the content and strength of the website rather than adding to the confusion and duplication. For instance, when I come across a new name that I'm working with, and this is not a real good example because it's just slightly disorganized, but you'll see that the dates and places haven't been standardized, the middle initials not put in correctly. On the right, under research help, there's some information that could be utilized and looked into possibly. So what I do is I start cleaning it up, standardizing the dates. I look through the hints, research hints left on the right, add the ones that are correct, delete the ones that are not, and then it's very simple to go on the right to Family Search, Ancestry, My Heritage, look for further records, include them, and have a more fuller picture in no time. That's the process I use every day. And number 10, and lastly, share what you find. It's really important to share what you find. First of all, 2 sets of eyes are always better than 1. There are other people out there who may be searching for the same name that you're working on and who can add to your research or perhaps find what you cannot find. Or maybe they'll see an error or something that is leading you off trail and they can save you from that. Also, if you don't share what you have found, you're forcing others to do the very same research that you did to find what you found. And so sharing is really important. It's also important to make it available to your posterity and to your family. And that includes distant cousins that you don't even know that may be out there working on this line. Now, I know that some of you are concerned with sharing about having their information, particularly on Family Search, changed or modified. And if that is a concern, you can always keep a separate copy locked up in your own little vault, just for protection's sakes. I haven't had a lot of problems with that at all, with the exception of one distant cousin who thought that the cemetery name shouldn't be included in the burial place and hid it in a very obscure, hard to find location. And once I found out that he was doing that, I just followed behind him, made the appropriate changes, and it wasn't an issue. But if it is an issue for you, just keep a copy for yourself, but still share. If we all share what we find and combine our resources and efforts, the whole process of genealogical research is blessed for it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity which I have to do research. It brings a huge joy into my life and blesses me in so many ways. And I hope that you will find the same for yourself. I wish you good luck in your research and hope to see you next year. Thank you.